It was New Year's Eve, and my friends and I had scored tickets to the hottest party in Seattle. The venue was on the 40th floor of an old skyscraper downtown, promising panoramic views of the city and fireworks at midnight. The elevator ride up was packed, full of laughter and chatter. Everyone was buzzing with excitement, including me, but there was a strange tension in the air, something I couldn't quite shake. When we stepped out, the party was everything we'd imagined: glittering lights, pulsating music, and champagne flowing like water. The crowd was dressed to the nines, and the room hummed with energy. But as I moved through the space, I started to notice odd details. The windows were fogged over despite the clear night outside. The air felt thick, almost stifling, as if too many people were crammed into too small a space. It wasn't just the atmosphere. There was something unspoken in the way people avoided certain corners of the room, dark, shadowy areas where the light didn't seem to reach. Around 11:15, I decided to step out onto the terrace for fresh air. The view of the city was breathtaking, but the wind felt biting, unnatural. I leaned against the railing, staring down at the city lights, and noticed something that made my stomach lurch. In the reflection of the terrace glass, I saw myself, but my reflection wasn't moving. It just stood there, staring back at me. Its mouth curled in a faint, malicious grin. I spun around, my heart hammering, but there was nothing behind me except other partygoers, laughing and oblivious. Shaking it off as a trick of the light or maybe the champagne, I rejoined my friends inside. But as midnight approached, things began to spiral. The music grew distorted, like a warped record, and the crowd's laughter started to sound more like screams. The fog on the windows thickened until it blocked out the view entirely, trapping us in a cocoon of gray. My friends and I exchanged uneasy glances. "Do you feel that?" one of them whispered. I nodded, a sinking feeling settling in my chest. The air seemed to grow colder, and my phone buzzed with notifications. "Unknown caller." Over and over again, each time sending a chill down my spine. At the stroke of midnight, the lights went out. The room plunged into darkness, and for a moment, everything was silent. Then came the sound, a low, guttural growl reverberating through the space. People started screaming, scrambling for the exit, but the elevators weren't working, and the stairwell door wouldn't budge. Panic set in as shadows seemed to slither along the walls, moving unnaturally, defying the flickering light of phone screens. I grabbed my friend Leah's hand and pulled her towards the bar, hoping to find something, anything that could help. That's when I saw them, figures standing in the dark corners of the room, their eyes glowing faintly, watching us. They didn't move, but their presence was suffocating. One by one, people started disappearing into the shadows, their screams cut off abruptly. It was like the room itself was swallowing them whole. "We need to get out of here," Leah said, her voice shaking. I nodded, trying to stay calm, and spotted an emergency exit sign near the back of the room. We fought our way through the panicked crowd, dodging the grasping hands of those shadowy figures. When we finally reached the door, it gave way easily, spilling us into a dimly lit stairwell. But as we descended, the growling followed us, growing louder and more menacing. The walls seemed to pulse and shift, the stairs stretching endlessly. No matter how far down we went, the door at the bottom remained just out of reach. Leah tripped, and when I turned to help her up, she screamed, pointing behind me. I glanced back and saw one of the figures crawling towards us, its elongated limbs moving with unnatural speed. Desperation took over. I grabbed Leah and ran, finally bursting through a door that led to the lobby. The fresh air hit us like a slap, and we stumbled out onto the street, gasping for breath. But when we looked back, the skyscraper was gone. In its place stood an empty lot, overgrown with weeds and debris, as if the building had never existed. We weren't the only ones outside. A few others stood there, wide-eyed and trembling, clutching each other as though to confirm they were still alive. No one said a word. Police sirens wailed in the distance, but when they arrived, they didn't find anything. No building, no sign of a party, nothing. It was as if the entire night had been erased, leaving only fragments in our memories. To this day, I can't explain what happened. The others who escaped refused to talk about it, and some of the people at the party were never found. All I know is that something was wrong in that building, something that wasn't meant to be disturbed. And every New Year's Eve, as the clock strikes midnight, I hear that growl in my nightmares. Each year, it gets louder.